Hello, welcome to episode 17 of the Launch Sequence podcast. I am your host, Space Tomato. This week I have brought a good friend and once again, the king of lore. I say it every time, but it's true, Astro Pub. How you doing, man?
I'm tired, but I'm good. Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, it's been a long week for you, huh?
Yeah, it's been a long week, but it's all right.
Yeah, that's you got a lot on your plate, but we finally got to get to the end of the week, Friday evening, get to talk about games a little bit. What could be better? Before we start, we're going to spend this week talking a lot about, as you may realize from the title, the big changes that are coming up in the game soon in Star Citizen. We got the medical system, the loot system, the inventory system. These are going to be some big changes in 3.15 next month, and we've also got a persistence wipe coming up that's got some people happy, some people not so much. So we'll talk about all of that. But first, I would like to hear, what are you playing these days, AstroPub?
It starts with world, or it starts with new and runs with world.
And ends with world.
It ends with world, yes. New world. I didn't play it as much as I'd like to, but it was also a very short open beta. And a lot of my friends ended up not playing it because they were just tired or doing other things. But I'm definitely, it's one of those things that constantly I look at it and go, this is a great example of a modern skill-based, mostly skill-based, RPG, like MMO with open world aspects and incorporating PvP, PvE, and non-combat elements. It's a fantastic little thing. If you are missing the old Guild Wars meets Star Wars Galaxies, it's very much that kind of mentality. And I'm in a snowstorm.
Yeah, camera went all crazy.
Hold on, let me. Oh yeah, if sometimes this works.
Let me refresh it.
Yeah, refresh me real quick.
Actually, don't.
I'm back.
Oh,
there we go.
I didn't have to refresh. There it is.
Difficulties.
What were we saying? Oh yeah, so this new world sounds like, it sounds like something that would appeal to a Star Citizen player.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of Star Citizen fans who play it. A lot of content creators I know who play Star Citizen. And it helps that it's the same engine as Star Citizen, right? But it is very similar. It's like Star Citizen if they had stats. It's still skill-based in terms of timing and how you use your stuff, and they do some kind of equalization of certain aspects, especially in PvP. But the core idea of it, this is the world. Go enjoy, just go. Having some sandbox elements in there is very, very similar to Star Citizen.
That's pretty cool. So we have a pretty large amount of people. I know we have several people who are into New World in my own community. We also have a pretty big group of people. Honestly, right now I'm seeing playing Valheim, and I don't know if you've played that one, but does it compare?
Oh, yeah. I haven't played a lot of Valheim, but I have heard a lot of people talk about it, and from what I've seen, it's much more of a survival game, but it's like a survival game that meets an RPG. So yeah, it's a lot more co-op experience. I'd say that it feels very similar to Star Citizen in the sense that, like what 3.15 is going to become, where the focus is much more on surviving together against the universe rather than, becoming the top dog.
Okay, so New World is a little bit less about that survival stuff.
Yeah, it's less about the survival stuff. It's more about the RPG elements and exploring. It's a lot more traditional MMO with the MMORPG, but it has a lot of in the past when you say you're crafting or you're doing something else, that feels a lot more. In the past, that would feel more with other games. It'd feel more like a waste. It's like a thing you have to do in order to advance. It's like the
grind. Yeah,
it's like the grind. But with New World, you could basically just go out, gather resources, and turn those into materials and then sell them on the market. People will buy them. And because it's all a player run economy for buying and selling goods and services for that sort of thing. And once you get enough skill, you can make unique items, and that you also get experience points for doing that. So you can take missions to collect resources to help for the building up the town that you're in. Each town has a specific level of shop. So you have, say, a smith that's a level 1. And if somebody as a group takes over that town, they can start upgrading those resources to encourage people, because certain things require certain levels. So you have to make a very good, light leather or light armor. You need to have a tier 4 weaver's shack. So you have to, so the people who own that territory, the guild that owns that territory, has to improve that over time. So they have to pay the money, but they also have to gather resources. And you can do missions to help them out, which will also get you experience points and money.
So when you say guild, this is an NPC guild in the game, or is this a player-run guild?
It's a player-run guild.
Okay.
The players can control certain regions.
So how many people are you in the game with?
I think their server cap is 1,000.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
So you basically, instead of Valheim, I think I'm getting the idea that it's more small parties in one server doing stuff. This is like a big communal server, and then everybody kind of can get their own spots.
Yeah, and you can take over territories from other players. You have to challenge them, and then you have to there's a whole siege mechanic where both sides meet at a fort at a certain time, and you have to see who can flip it. And if there's too much conflict, then you invite the NPC factions will start to attack you. The mob factions, the bad guys will attack your town, and if they succeed in the attack, then all of your stuff gets de-leveled. So it's a constant, there is constant war and conflict, and where players choose to set up will determine a lot about what they can and can't produce. And so players will do crafting in this one area because they really like the setup, and then they realize, oh, I need to get this level 3 blacksmith, and the closest one that has a level 3 blacksmith is across the map. Well, time to take all of my mats, everything I've gathered, and then trek across the map to this next other blacksmith in order to be there. And then while you're there, you might as well set up town,
because that's the people you have to work with, right?
That's what you have to be able to work with. And then those people who control that region can set taxes and sort of things. So it's very as I'm describing, and I'm sure hopefully people at home can also see how it feels very similar to Star Citizen, where it's a universe that you are allowed to control. There are other things that are part of it. You're part of that universe, but you have a large control over what happens, and it's all about players interacting with players.
Man, so. I can't wait for Star Citizen to get to that point. And I think a lot of other people can't either, and that's why a lot of people are attaching to games like New World, because they offer that, and it sounds fun. I mean, I would say that is not in a genre that I generally don't get into. It's kind of fantasy themed, right?
It's not really fantasy. Well, yeah, it's fantasy. It's like the cool part about it is it's set in the 1600s, so it's fantasy, but it's our world in an alternative world. An alternative version of 16th century or 15th century. Yeah. So you've got people with muskets, you've got people with bows and arrows, but you have people with spears and swords and rapiers.
Right. Okay.
So.
Yeah, so it doesn't really fall into a genre I would normally be interested in, especially as an MMO, but it does sound really fun. And I think that's just because that's what I am ready to get started with in Star Citizen.
Yeah. I'm kind of fantasied out myself, but the reason why I enjoyed it is because I enjoy that kind of time period. A, and B, there was so much of what I want in Star Citizen that it's already there.
Right.
So
yeah. So what's something in that game that, and it could be something that's already or not already confirmed for Star Citizen, what's something in that game that you'd really like to see, though, in some form or scale in the same way in Star Citizen?
I really like the way that the interactions, like the whole players controlling a region thing, where players I wouldn't like to see as formalized as it is in New World, but the idea is that players control this region and they have these resources or these access to these specific things that other people want. So other players will be willing to go there and set up shop and kind of do their business there because it's got the places what they want. and then it's up to the players who control that region to keep those players happy in order for them to keep them there. It's the whole player and player kind of thing, that whole the balance around, rather than just being murder each other, like that's your interaction with your fellow player is just, I'm gonna stab you. It's, I have to work with you. I have to deal with you in some way. I'd rather not stab you, but I can, but it's going to take a lot of effort for me to stab you and make it meaningful. Otherwise, it's just going to be kind of a nuisance. So, you know, that whole like player on player dynamic is very interesting in New World. And I'd like to see something like that in Star Citizen.
Basically building like actual civilization amongst players where you have to deal with somebody because of the fact that they're not because they play like you or you like them, but because they're there and they have that. And that really, it gets me to start thinking about resources in Star Citizen and how they'll work, and whether we will see specific resources that are so rare that, say, you only find them on one part of one planet, right? Like I think kind of a common thing to think too, at least a recent example, would be like the Han Solo movie that came out where they have to go specifically to this one place that everybody knows about that's got these mines. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, will they do that? Will they have something that's that rare to find? Or will this just be sort of like as long as you're in a system, you have access to a planet, you're good kind of thing?
Yeah.
Because
I'm asking if it...
I'm thinking out loud. That's kind of my... Yeah. I get to those sorts of questions when I start thinking of these underlying systems, and I wonder how far into the future is that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Pyro. I think that's Pyro. I think there'll be some things in Pyro that are like the best of the best, and you want to go mine it, but it's also in Pyro.
Yeah, that would be great.
So a player could easily just sit there and be like, cool, I've got my Starfarer here. You need to refuel because you're obviously out in the middle of nowhere. You can pay me.
Yeah.
You can't? Okay, cool. I'll just call my buddy up who happens to be a pirate and be like, yo, there's this valuable cargo of ore that this idiot's here who doesn't want to pay me. Why don't you come by? I'll give you the coordinates. You know, I think that we'll start seeing that.
Yeah.
So
we'll get paid either way, buddy.
Yeah.
That would be great, though, if they were able to. And I guess, you know, that's a great point. The fact that they're bringing in a second system is, to them, I mean, to us, it's like, oh, new location, tons of new stuff. To them, it's like they have tons of opportunity to test a bunch of things they couldn't do in Stanton when they only had one system, that they couldn't, like, do weird things with the law and stuff like that. So it'll be cool to see how they experiment with it as they develop it after its release. So
yeah.
We were talking briefly before this that the main news in Star Citizen right now, and this is like real-time news, I think as we speak, the Argo Cargo is continuing its orange crusade through the ship showdown this year, and it's up against the Carrack right now.
Yes.
And
as of this recording, it's against the Carrack.
Do you know what the score is? I'm pulling it up here. Looks like
it's up 1,000 votes.
Yeah, look at that.
The Carrack is down 1,000 votes to the MPUV.
Yep, 9282 on the Carrack to 10,203 on the MPUV. Good for it. That thing needs an update. I can't wait to see what it's going to look like with the newer creation.
Yeah, it's getting a gold pass. So
yeah, that's going to be nice. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
Tell us about this Argo Cargo craze, please.
Well, as the high pope of the Argo Cargo cult, let me.
I've seen it. This guy, your Twitter has turned into an Argo Cargo propaganda outlet this last week.
My Twitter is an Argo Cargo fan page now. Thank you very much.
I've seen the art.
So there's a long story behind this, but I will start off with saying that it's a meme, but it's not a meme. The Argo Cargo and the Argo MPUV has had its fans since forever, since it first came out. People love the shitty little orange box because of what it means, what it can do, and what it means for the future of Star Citizen. And for years, people have been trying to get it into the Ship Showdown. Last year was its biggest chance to get into it, and CIG said, nah, it was close, but we decided not to. So this year, I decided to aid, I think Red Lear was the one who was super, I aid him, and then a bunch of other people, you know, joined the Red Lear's cause as well to try to get it onto the to the show, onto the Ship Showdown. And it worked, partially because people memed it, but also because it's a kind of I feel like it's a stand-in, because if the Ship Showdown was just about what is the best ship, the Carrack will win every year.
Yeah.
Because it's the best ship. Like, there's no argument against the Carrack. It's literally a meta ship that is absolutely overpowered. It has tier 2. It's one of the only ships that has respawn beds. One of the only 3 ships that has respawn beds. It's the cheapest ship with a respawn bed. It has decent firepower. It has good shields. It has a snub bay for a shuttle that has a quantum drive in it. It has beds for respawning. It has, it even is set up for the most beloved pastime that everyone's looking forward to, which is exploration. So yeah, every year it would win no matter what.
Yeah.
But the problem is that CIG, the way that CIG runs this, it really doesn't give a shot for the ships that are smaller that deserve more free skins and content, like the Aurora or the Avenger or the Mustang. Like, these are ships that people really love as well, but they almost never get a chance to shine.
And they're much more popular.
They're much more popular. Yeah. There's a lot more Avengers out there, Avenger Titans, than there are Carracks, hands down.
Yeah.
So, you know, the problem is that they would never make it.
Yeah.
So the fact that the Argo MPUV has made it this far, I think should hopefully shine a spotlight for CIG to fix their brackets next year, to make it a little bit more, give the people a little bit more of what they deserve. You know, because if you buy an Avenger Titan, you shouldn't be treated worse than somebody who spends $600, even in principle. Because yes, we know the person with $600 spent a lot of money, but that's one person versus the, you know, hundreds of people who've purchased the $60 ship.
Yeah. And if
give
they're
a little bonus.
And if they're really going to try and draw emphasis away from the fact that people can pay and get a lot on people who can't pay, they should definitely continue to push the idea that it's not about the size or the fanciness of the ship that you're getting. It's about the specific use for it. Therefore, you know, just because you got the big fancy ship doesn't mean you're going to get more of these skins. It would be nice if maybe they considered having a split, you know, between ships of a certain class and some of these smaller, more popular ships for starters and players who are just starting out from square one every single time there's a wipe. Because yeah, like you said, there's a lot more of these ships, and they don't get enough skins. No, not at all.
And that's at least my hope, is that the MPUV going as far as it does. If it beats the Carrack, I hope that sends the message to CIG: make better brackets. Yeah, you know, make distinct brackets, which are small ship, medium ship, large ship, and capital ship.
That's a fair cause. I'll get behind Team Argo Cargo for that one.
Yeah. Because and to prove it, we had the weight of votes to beat the best ship in the game. Why? Because legitimately, what a lot of people say, the Carrack has its skin. Let the Argo have a skin.
Also because memes are powerful.
Memes are powerful, but memes mean something. There's a reason behind the memes.
There is,
I think the reason behind the memes is that like, you know, we're kind of done with that. But yeah, so vote Argo for the cargo cult. Argo for the cargo god, or Cargo for the cargo god, SCUs for the SCU throne,
vote all Argo that jazz. Out.
Yeah.
All right, I'm a convert. I'm with that. I really am, because like everybody knows, everybody that's really involved in Star Citizen knows and understands, and I mean all the developers obviously understand as well, that there are just not enough things that you can earn in the game right now, and that's causing a lot of like angst, because we want to earn things. Making sure that the stuff that we do get is kind of balanced, I feel is going to be a big part of making sure everybody feels valued during a time when there's not many rewards. So that would be great to see some Argo stuff, or maybe something for my boy the Terrapin. That would be nice. I really hope we get a
Terrapin, the turtle. The turtle got no love. You know, that's a great example of a ship. The turtle is a great ship that has its own following. You know, if the turtle was the one that was memed to the top, it has no purpose either. Like the MPUV, like a lot of people, the MPUV just is a pointless ship. So is the Terrapin. Doesn't mean the Terrapin, it wasn't a very popular ship and has its own following behind it.
The Terrapin,
it's never going to get any love.
Yeah,
because it's not the Carrack.
It's not. Not until we get the deep space or the better, more, I guess, scanning tier 2, it'll have to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Terrapin is, gosh, it has so much potential in that ship. It is such a great compact size for a bunch of really good jobs. I keep calling it a tomato pin as a joke on my monthly reports. I really want that variant that they keep talking about in the monthly report that's almost done. I want it to be a medical Terrapin. I think that would be so cool. But, you know, like you said, it's getting no love, so...
No, but like I was going to say, the Terrapin is a perfect example of that. Everything the Terrapin does, the Carrack does better. Yeah. So why would you vote if it was about the best ship in the game? Why would you even ever vote for a Terrapin? It's like, well, because not everyone owns a Carrack. You know, the people who bought the Terrapin get some love and get some skins and get some hype. You know?
Seriously. And you said there were 3 ships with the tier 2 or higher medical beds. Is that the Endeavor 890 and Carrack?
Yep, the Endeavor 890 and Carrack.
There are no other beds currently, not even in concept, that have tier 2 or higher beds.
Nope.
I thought the Apollo could get some. They could switch them out.
Oh, yeah, and the Apollo. Yeah, you're right. The Apollo is in concept. Yeah, so 4. There's 4.
Okay, yeah, but just 4. And that's I mean, for how important a game loop it is going to be, they're going to need to make more ships with tier 2 or higher beds, definitely.
To be fair, we don't know if... We assume that something like the Javelin and the Idris will probably have tier 2 beds, but like, but we're at that point where it's kind of like the Endeavor. It's kind of like, of course,
it's a given.
That size is going to have something like that.
It's like, I don't want to be on a ship that big and have to spawn at a space station.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna need some smaller ships like that. That's interesting. I didn't realize it was so few. So let's step forward now to kind of the more exciting bits. 3.15, the big changes. I don't know which one's bigger, medical or inventory, in your opinion.
I think they're equal.
They're pretty even.
They go hand in hand in terms of like how much they work together and how much they change together.
Yeah,
like you remove the medical aspect from the inventory stuff, and the inventory stuff is so important on its own, but the medical stuff adds that extra fear factor.
Right.
Whereas if you remove the inventory stuff from the medical, it removes the fear factor because it removes the, like, you know, if you're like lurching with a broken leg trying to get to your ship, you know, and trying to get to a hospital because you've got an hour before you die from this injury. That adds some tension. You you're getting on the horn with your friends being like, fucking help me, motherfucker. I'm dying down here, you know, trying to get someone to get a medical evac from an area because, you know, you stabilize yourself, but you got 2 hours.
You're like, I got all the loot. You better get me up.
yeah. Just get me. I got everything.
Yeah.
That's important because, you know, but then at the same time, like, unless you have that fear of death hanging over you, the idea of you running down with just a pistol and a dream is a little bit more scary. You know, it's like, you know, it's not as scary if death doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why I think I was telling you before, people are combining the two in their criticisms, you know, talking about how they don't want to lose all their stuff, but then using that as a criticism of the medical gameplay, whereas it's not technically medical gameplay that causes you to lose your stuff, it's the inventory system, but they are so closely intertwined that they can almost be considered one system together. So it's no coincidence that we're getting them both in the same patch. These are two things that I'm pretty sure CIG has mentioned that they really wanted to have coming together, and we knew that they wanted to get hospitals in the game along with the medical system because obviously the whole respawning thing. But is it too early is the big question that a lot of people are asking, mainly because we died to glitches, we died to crashes, and we don't know all the answers of how it's going to work when we die to, or rather when we get kicked out of a game because of a crash. But does it ultimately feel like it's coming too early for the game?
And we had to talk about this on the Info Runners.
We did.
You and I and Execute.
Yeah.
And I still think it's not too early. I still think it's the right time, because the argument I would say is, when would be the better time? And the argument that the response that someone would give typically is when we don't have as many bugs. And so the answer is, there are going to be bugs throughout alpha. That's just what an alpha is.
Right.
Like, when? Because so if the answer is, oh, not till beta, then what you're saying is you don't want server meshing. You don't want any of the other things related to the inventory system that until beta. And if the answer is, oh, no, I want server meshing, it's like, but you don't get server meshing without this.
Yeah,
you don't get any of the other things without this. This is just required, you know?
No cargo refactor.
Yeah, you don't get the cargo refactor. You don't get, there's so many things that are tied into this system that it's not too soon. If anything, it's too late. You know, it's coming far too, you know, it should have come in much earlier, but you know, we're just going to kind of have to bite the bullet with the bugs.
So that's on the inventory side. How about the medical side? You think that could have been pushed off longer?
I think so, but I also don't, especially when you're talking about Squadron 42, I imagine medical will play a role in Squadron 42 at some cases as well. So
you could make the argument that they'd develop it for Squad and then hold it off in the PU. I personally,
that would also be a double work. Like, why work twice as hard when the whole point of developing these games at the same time is that they share the same system, so you don't have to develop two separate systems.
Right. My biggest thing with the whole wait until there aren't glitches thing is, like, they're gonna have to basically hold it off until there aren't glitches and then start working on it. So even when there aren't glitches, we're gonna have two more quarters probably where we're not getting the medical system. Then they put a medical system in and it breaks with something else. So suddenly there are glitches and we're back to where we would have been if we hadn't waited. It's just, I don't think there's any getting around to the fact that it's going to suck for a little while.
Yep. Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. You're going to have to deal with it.
At least look at the bright side. If it's coming in 3.15, that means there's fixes in 3.16.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah.
And that's something I wasn't really planning on talking about too much, but honestly, 3.16, people have been saying, oh, it looks a little light. Looks a little, you know, it's not that much going on. That's, I kind of prefer that. I want every update to have something significant now. So I would like maybe one tentpole feature, one big thing, like if salvage were happen to somehow, against all of our expectations, actually come with 3.16 at the end of the year. I would love for that to kind of hold the patch up and everything else to sort of surround it and support what's been going on in the last 2 quarters. Because in the end of 2021, we're going to be playing a very different game than we were playing at the beginning of 2021, and it all would have happened in the last like 4 months. So I don't think 3.16 needs to be a big deal, to be honest.
No. When you mentioned that, it brought up the memory. We've been talking about this since July. You and I, or June. You and I specifically started this conversation in June on a captain's table. That when it was, all of this was originally coming in 3.14, and then they get pushed to 3.15. So
because this is a freaking big deal. We've been waiting.
Yeah,
we've been wanting it.
Yeah. But I mean, we talked about then, like, how much of a change this is, and it's like, yeah, this is a huge change. I now notice that everybody else, including CIG, is talking about how everything changes when this happens. Right? It's like,
vindicated.
Space Tomato and I have literally been saying this for months.
We were tooting the horn.
Shit on for it.
We were tooting the horns. So besides the time thing, the time question, is it too early or is it not too early? Let's talk about this getting put in the game, period. Because some people, I have gotten comments, and you might have too, people are like, this is going to ruin the game. This isn't going to work. Other games have tried this. It's too hardcore. It's going to scare people away. It's not going to survive. They're going to have to change it. Somebody this morning told me something like, hey, they tried to do this on EverQuest. It didn't work. It was terrible. I've never played EverQuest. I know some people have, but they were just saying this, and then somebody else came in and said, no, it actually worked great. When it comes to Star Citizen, what do you think? I mean, we're biased, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, you did an entire video, which people should watch, by the way, on the Dark Souls connection, the Demon Souls connection with Death of a Spaceman and that kind of thing. And I don't think it's going to be as hardcore as people think, because there's two factors. A lot of people don't realize that most of the bugs and most of the time you die is going to be within a spawn zone. So it's not going to matter that much.
Right.
And on top of that, instead of just instantly running through my MSR's entrance and just derp died, I'll just derp down. Yeah. And if I have a friend with me, they can just stick me with a medical pen and I can get back up and be like, oh, thanks, you know, kind of thing.
Or you derp and then like hurt your leg and you have to heal an injury.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it adds some time. It's a little bit of a like, great, now I have to do this. Yeah. But instead of having to like, oh, great, now I have to do this, instead of having to respawn in the bed, get back out, go down, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And people also forget that your inventory is not going to be the infinite inventory. So like, I think people are talking about like, wait, so I've collected 17 guns and all this special armor and it's all going to be gone when the second I die. It's like, no, the one piece of armor you have on is going to be gone when you die. And the only way you're going to die is if you're facing a real big jerk or you didn't bring backup. It's not as hard as people are making it out to be. It's not really like a permadeath system. It's more like a system like Battlefield or Arma.
Right.
You know, where you have a chance of living. It's much more simulation to, it's much more similar to a milsim game than it is to kind of more hardcore death sims. So I actually don't agree that it's a hardcore sim. I think it's pretty light.
Yeah, I especially like somebody said that the downstate was dumb. That CIG was trying to reinvent medical in a game, and I was like, have you played a first person shooter in the last 15 years? Because downstate is it's common. It's an industry standard. It's really I think I understand there are worries, but I do think that people are being a little bit much when they're picking the systems apart. To be honest, seeing the new inventory system, I'm not a huge fan of the overlay. I'm not a huge fan of the UI. I think it's almost there, but it's got some issues.
Ugly.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't mind the inventory system. I don't like the fact that it's bland. Everything is boxes. And I don't like the fact that it I agree.
Yeah. And I won't get into it yet, but it's just, there are things to pick at. But some of these things with the medical system, I think are really either issues that will definitely be picked up after it comes out and like, you know, kind of toned in, and just non-issues really. But the medical system is good. When you talked about people kind of, obviously you wouldn't have all your stuff with you when you died, and you could store it on your ship, maybe store 3 suits on your ship and a few guns on your ship, and then the rest of it at a landing zone. So you always have some stuff to get every time you do die. And you got me thinking like, okay, so this is cool. Now, instead of getting that one suit of armor that I like, suddenly I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking, hey, I want 2 suits of armor that I can keep in this ship because I wear that often. I want 4 suits of armor maybe in this ship because sometimes I go to, you know, the hot moons with this one, so I'll keep those in there and I'll have them extra. And I'm thinking, now I'm actually spending money. Now I'm actually thinking about how I'm going to need to spend this much money and that much money. And then on top of that, if I'm losing stuff, I'm also getting stuff back from loot. So suddenly it's not about me going to a store, buying stuff, losing it, going to a store, buying stuff, losing it. Now it's like, I can go to a store, I can buy everything I need. I don't need to spend it all at once. I don't need to use it all at once. Maybe I'll find some extra stuff out at loot and I'll never have to go back to the store. It builds this better system where you're thinking about the way that you're earning and spending money so much differently, just because we can now die and lose stuff. I love that.
Yeah.
It's really cool. What do you think of the loot system? I guess there's not much to say about it, but I haven't played MMOs before, so I don't know how loot usually functions.
You play Destiny?
A little bit, I think. Yeah, like a couple hours.
Snowstorm.
Yeah, there you go again, man.
I mentioned Destiny, and Bungie's like, no.
Hold on a second. No, that didn't work. Why didn't that work?
Let me try this. There we go. I can refresh on my end. So, all All right. So how loot systems tend to work in an MMO, and I'm sure this is a very basic version, and I'm sure your viewers will correct me a little bit more, is there tends to be tiers of loot. It's usually gray, green, usually maybe sometimes yellow, and then usually purple is usually the high end. Essentially like grade, like kind of like your grades of our systems and our ships, from D to A. And A being the best. And the loot is usually randomly generated, so it's more of a wherever you go, you're not going to get the same thing twice. And what you get will, sometimes you want to keep it, sometimes you want to sell it, sometimes you want to
like break it down into parts or something.
Yeah, break it down into parts, or there's usually some other aspects like selling it or putting it on like an auction market or whatever. So. Or give it to your friends. So it's usually a system that's about trying to find good, rare gear, stuff that's hard to find, stuff that has the right bonuses for the right perks. And in Star Citizen, that makes no sense. So so we'll see how it works in terms of the loot system. I feel like it's just going to be likely more just random parts or components, but I'd like to see in the future, at least, rare items which give specific bonuses, like a light armor that has higher defense, absorption, or specific rad resistance, or those sorts of things. But it's just like a regular armor. So but we'll see. I think the first version is mostly just a testing out how it works.
It's just the really basic stuff.
Yeah, and then you taking that, and then I'm hoping being able to sell it, because that's the other thing about loot systems, is that loot is fine if you want to use it, but if you have no use for it, you should be able to sell it. So being able to strip a body of loot, or finding in this chest and finding some cool stuff, and then taking it back to a merchant and selling it, now you've got some extra money on top of the mission that sent you there in the first place.
Well, unfortunately, selling is currently on the roadmap for, I think, Q1. 2022.
2022.
Yeah. So you're gonna have a nice full persistent inventory of useless loot for
garbage
for a couple quarters. Yeah. Hopefully we can find uses for it. Like I was saying, I like that I'll be able to pick up loot and consider using that instead of just going back to a store. At the very least, I find myself med pens because I go through a lot of those. I do. Yeah. I do. It's bad. It's bad. Okay. So let's talk about the wipe that's coming up. This got announced just this last week, like a few days ago, and it's something it used to happen a lot before persistence was brought in, I think 3.8 or the 3.8 branch. Do you think that, well, first they're breaking up this wipe structure so that like they can only wipe certain things at certain times. This is awesome in my opinion. I feel like they don't actually have to do this because it is an alpha and they could be lazy about it, but at the same time they kind of have people playing this like it's a finished game, so it's nice that they're doing that. But how often do you think we can expect to see wipes after this final, like this is for the physical inventory, so we all kind of expected it to happen. What about like server meshing or the cargo rework? Do you think like we might see wipes for those kinds of things, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to see a wipe for the dynamic mission system when that comes in, the quanta stuff. When they're generating missions based off of the needs rather than just being the stock standard missions you see. I think we'll see a wipe when we see server meshing, and I think we'll see a wipe when they come up with physicalized damage for ships, when they kind of change some of the major characteristics of ships, because they want to see, for all those reasons, like the dynamic mission system, they want to see how the missions are functioning and how the balance is working out. So they'll probably wipe just the UEC. And with like the ship balance, the ship dynamics will probably just wipe the ships. And with the server meshing, that might be a big general wipe, but that's also a completely different game as well. When they're adding in server meshing, the day they're adding server meshing, they're adding pyro. So it's like that's 100% going to happen. And when that happens, it's again, it's like right when 3.15 is going to be, everything's going to change.
That's
so
when everything does actually change. I feel like that'll be the first time it feels like Star Citizen. If we've got Quantum working, I think that'll be, oh man. Yeah, can't wait for that. Hopefully that's within the year.
Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, they have the event systems working, which is part of the Quantum system.
Right. Yeah.
They have this the iCache system is coming in pieces. It's already sort of in now, but it's going to be continue to be added in 3.15 and 3.16. So
a lot of these key features are doing this sort of not general, but like iterative process kind of adding thing like you're talking about.
Yeah,
doing the
and that's why I've been an advocate against the whole what is it called, the Jesus patch mentality. Like, oh, is it worth me coming back? Is this the patch that I come back for? It's like, I don't know. What do you want to play for?
Yeah,
like there's no such thing as a Jesus patch, because even the first iteration of server meshing isn't the final iteration of server meshing.
Right.
So we'll see changes over time.
Yeah.
So
it really depends on what you're looking for. I've been trying to figure out how to present that in my updates or the reviews of the patches. Like, how do I tell people that they shouldn't play this unless they're obsessed with space? And I just end up saying that. But I do hope that I hope that we get maybe just one wipe per year, like maybe that'd be a good solid balance to move forward with, because it is nice to know that you have a solid like 6 to 9 months where you can play the game, kind of like a mini version of the game. You can work towards some stuff with people and all that good stuff. But I hope it doesn't happen too often.
I'm with you on that one. I feel like a full solid year, CitizenCon to CitizenCon, would be a great wipe. That way everyone knows it's CitizenCon's coming up. They're going to sit down and wipe it and move forward. I know CIG is a little bit more reticent to wipe, because I feel like they're getting a lot of data based off of how much they collect, how much people do stuff. Yeah. I still feel like it's probably just going to be bigger events. Then again, CIG has this tendency, this strange tendency. I don't know why they would do this, but they tend to release these major patches around the biggest marketing event of the year. Shocking, I know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's intentional, but I do think it's subconscious. Anytime they could delay something to CitizenCon, they will delay something to CitizenCon.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And I mean, they said that, right? What was that, 2 or 3 years ago? They were like, the third patch is going to be the biggest patch. That's yeah. The
biggest patch is the third patch. The smallest one's the fourth.
Yeah. Yeah. Except sometimes it's like, it's weird. I think this is why does this keep?
I got it.
I think this is last year we didn't really have a big patch, right?
Yeah. We also didn't have a CitizenCon.
Yeah. So I don't know. Last year we'll just, COVID. But this year, this year it's a big one though. And I like it. I'm looking forward to it. Let's take a bit of a swing here. I wanted to finish up a little bit, talk about your specialty, some lore and narrative stuff. We have seen one of the things that it gets me very, very excited, that I actually haven't seen much recently, more so in the beginning of the year, was the narrative team starting to step up and talk about the changes that they wanted to make to the game in terms of adding mission content and fleshing out more of the background of the game. And we've seen that a little bit in Reputation. We see it. We were supposed to see it with mission givers, which aren't really happening. And then we see it a little bit with the dynamic events. Where else do you think they could start to fit in more of this lore and narrative into the game in the next few patches? Because I know a lot of people, even though they don't care about lore, it helps so much make the game more fun to get involved with.
I've been an acolyte. I've been a very big proponent of wild lions. Mm-hmm. NPCs talking to each other in landing zones.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That's a huge step. Just adding a little bit of a flair of, hey, did you vote for the Imperator? Oh, no, I didn't like any of them.
Right.
That kind of thing. Hey, have you taken this to Sarah into accounting? Why does she want it again? I don't know. Whatever, and you can do a bunch of stock standard lines that you can then generate that bump up against each other, because then you have hilarious wild lines that don't make any sense, but they work.
That's actually,
it adds a little. a little more flavor to the universe. Because people talk to each other. They don't just stand there and stare at you.
It really does, yeah. No, you're right. That's a super good point, because nobody talks anywhere. The interesting thing is they do that with the loudspeakers. Everywhere you go over loudspeakers, you'll hear people talking. Why do you think that is? Is that just because it's part of that sort of the physical AI, the way that it acts doesn't allow for the proper, like, I'm imagining they can't even get these people to walk in straight lines, right? Or to like sit down correctly. So I'm guessing whatever wild lines they might give them wouldn't work anyways. Do you think that might be why there aren't any?
Yes, I think it has more to do with the servers sucking. It's like the AI is working fine inside, but then the server sucks, so it's hard for them to update it. Yeah,
because it really does feel dead. But besides wildlines, is there anything, let's say, kind of, I guess, mission related? Honestly, is what I would be interested in hearing. What do you think they could do in terms of bringing more narrative into the mission besides these dynamic events with these pre-made gangs?
Server the mission givers. So I'm going to leak a little bit. So hopefully this is okay for you and your audience. This is something that's been in the files for literally 5 years.
All right. So for anybody who doesn't want, I'm guessing Squadron 42 spoilers.
No, not Squadron 42 spoilers. This is Star Citizen
spoilers.
Star
Citizen spoilers. Skip forward 30 seconds.
Yeah. Big and very brief. There are entire conversations you're supposed to have with mission givers.
Okay.
Like full-on conversations, like you're supposed to go to them, talk with them, get a mission, go do missions, and then they call you back, and then you do another mission, and then sometimes they'll call you back, and they just want to go out and drink with you.
Kind of like with Miles, except more expanded, I guess.
More expanded, and you start to get to know them, and you interact with them, and your interactions with them to determine how well their affinity for you is, and then you continue to do missions for them. And sometimes, if their affinity for you is low or high, then they will betray you. Or in some cases, you can let them. There's fail states for missions, so that they either die or they get really injured, and they blame you for it. And they even have Tessa. Even they have full mission lineups for Tessa that they haven't released yet. Well, so they're like, it's been in the game for 5 years. It's just they haven't really pushed for the development of those mission givers, and I think that has a lot to do with the dynamic mission system. Yeah, that's because that's not done yet.
Really, but the priority
would go a long way.
Yeah. They just like, because I know they had, what was that, 2019? I want to say we were kind of, things felt good. We had just gotten client side OCS at the end of 2018, I think. Right? Yeah. So things had starting to play better, and it was like the beginning of 2019. We had like mission givers that were supposed to be at Microtech and Crusader, and they were on the roadmap, and like it was looking good. We were looking like we were going to have multiple people to take missions from, and then they just disappeared, and we haven't heard anything about them since. And it really does kind of seem like it's just because they shifted priority to make sure the game could even play with those mission givers. So it makes sense if they would have a lot of stuff in the background that they haven't been able to put in the game for them yet. That would be a great way, definitely a great way to experience some more of the lore. Honestly, I want to use the current mission givers. I do. Yeah. Sometimes I go on YouTube and just watch people play their missions because I can't be bothered to take the chance that 1 in 50 chance that it's actually going to work for me.
Yeah. Oh, and you have people like Miles, you have people like Tecia. And while this is not really full lore, it's the way that people get interested in the lore, because Miles isn't just some yokel with a gun. Miles Eckhart is the heir to one of the largest security empires in the UEE.
Yeah, he's
which is why it's weird to see him. We see him just hanging out in Lorville's bar. It would be like Elon Musk just hanging out in a dive bar in Chicago.
Yeah, I didn't know he was that big.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not Elon Musk, but like he's definitely not unknown.
Yeah.
Multi-system security corporation. It's up there with Blackjack. So
and you just get a random call for. See, I do hope that because he's that impressive, it is a little harder to impress him later on. You have to actually do something. The mission givers, and I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say something else about the mission givers, but I really do hope that they can start to get them back into the game soon, because they're a lot of fun, and a lot of people are looking for
context.
They do.
They add more context to the universe. Ticia is wild. Her whole thing is like an absolute road to destruction, because I've heard all her lines. It is an absolute road to destruction. But if you like blowing shit up, TC is your girl.
Yeah, that's cool.
And she is very much a ride or die kind of person. You wanna go fuck some shit up, and you wanna hang out with TC for the entirety of you're in Stanton.
Yeah, she
will give you plenty of money and plenty of explosives.
And and you want to learn more about the backstory of why. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, she's got a whole reason why she's on this crusade, almost a personal crusade.
I like that.
And then you got people like, Constantine Hurston, who is his own kind of, he's trying to get his own foot in the door with the Hurstons. You've got people like the whole smuggling crew, like the bartender at Wally's in Microtech. He's there. Eddie Parr. He's there right now. He just. Yeah, they just don't have his mission system set up yet. So
I didn't know that.
Like he has a whole story. He works with Wallace Klim, and there's an entire different mission giver which hasn't been added into the game yet, who works in Hurston, who's basically like the guy who can get you that thing you need in Lorville. Like he basically gets the things that Hurston bans. He's like, I can get you what you need.
And there's two more mission givers that should be in Orison, correct?
Yeah,
advocacy.
The Wonder Twins.
Yeah.
So the Wonder Twins at the lemonade stand is what they call them. So,
so it's seeming like anywhere from 3 to 6 mission givers per landing zone, at least at the current rate. And each of these mission givers has their own narratives. I'm assuming they'll have more than one narrative branch over time. They'll eventually have multiple kind of branching mission arcs that you can take, but. People are looking for these. I see people a lot. They're like, hey, I don't want to run these delivery missions. I don't want to do these mining missions. Is there anything with a little more story involved? I'm like, yeah, there are mission givers. They just don't really work yet. But people are raring to go with some of these features. And the lore-backed, the narrative-backed stuff, I think, is high on that list.
Yeah, I think even the lore team wants to do that. The lore team, especially when you read some of the monthly reports with the lore team, they are rip-roaring and ready to go to get some of these missions, some of these stories rolling.
Yeah.
But often there'll be some pretty sad updates from narrative where they're like, yeah, we once sat down and talked with the design team. The design team basically just said, this is the reason, this is the reason, this is the reason, this is the reason why we can't get that done right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
narrative's one of those things. It's like, you need to get the engineering and stuff done, right, so that the function works, and you need to get the art so that people think the function is pretty, but like narrative is just like way down the list. They come in at the end, so it sucks because while the game's being built in this foundational level, they're just doing stuff in the background. It's a bummer, but I'm excited to see what they've been working on. I personally, after reading some of the lore pieces they put out, like one of the ones that stands out to me really is I don't remember the name, but it's recent. They did it. They put it out publicly recent. It's the one where he has the bad job in Lorville. He gets down to the city and it all goes wrong. And they talk about like these piles of cameras looking down on the street and these like rugged looking people, kind of gangs sitting around giving you bad looks, and this music that they blast over the speakers to make people stay happy. And you're just like, I really hope they take, when they get the chance to go back to Stanton and go take these other passes over these planets, I hope they can put more of that stuff in. Because when you get into the lore descriptions of these places, you're like, go into that, get that. I love that. Do you think they'll do that though? Do you think they're gonna
I think so.
Focus more on the lore side, or just like features when they come back into those planets?
I think it's gonna be lore side, because that's almost the reason why Montreal exists. You know, the Montreal team, the turbulent Montreal design team.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about them.
Their whole job is to go back and fix these problems. So, and you know, the way they're hiring people with lots and lots of experience in narrative open world games. People who've worked for Ubisoft and worked for mostly Ubisoft because it's Montreal, but and other games, those sorts of things with those sorts of eye to story and gameplay.
Yeah.
So, I think that's 100% what they're going to do. But the question is more, when will they do it? And I have this nagging fear that it won't be until server meshing is in. And, in my mind, that's not until the end of next year. So it's just like, another year of nothing,
That's a bummer. Yeah. I really do hope they do. There's that. And then I think the reputation system would be a great way for them to start to get more of that lore in. And you did a great video on that. Still one of my favorite videos you've done was that Ninetales earlier this year. I can't wait to hear about more of that stuff. So I do hope that they put some focus on that, like you're saying, once server meshing is in.
It'd be nice to know a little bit more about these different groups and such. And find out in game. Like I'm glad that CIG's releasing lore so I can make lore videos, but at the same time, it's like I'd rather people find out about it in game and then go, I'd like to know more.
Yeah, and you're the extra resource.
Oh, there's the video who can explain more of the context for me.
Waiting for that to happen. Your channel is going to blow up when that happens, man. You're going to be the place to go for lore.
Here's the hoping. Here's the hoping.
Speaking of which, why don't you go ahead and tell the people where they can find you for your content?
Hello again. You can find me on twitch.tv/TheAstroPub Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. So I'm probably going to take this Friday off. And then for gameplay for Star Citizen, other games, I do like an AMA that I do called Office Hours at the beginning of the week on Thursdays, where you just sit down and talk. Do Captain's Table, where you'll see people like Space Tomato here. He'll be on a couple of them, especially with a charity live stream, a charity live stream for post Citizen Con. That we're going to be doing a 24-hour charity live stream with people from all over the Star Citizen universe coming to talk about Citizen Con and our kind of podcast format. It's going to be terrible and awesome, awesomely terrible.
It's going to be a joy.
Yes. So join us for that one. But you can also find a lot of my pre-recorded videos, things like the lore videos that Tomato has been hyping up, and the various discussion videos on gameplay or Captain's Tables, or even just clips from my live highlights from my stream on youtube.com/TheAstroPub. It's basically the AstroPub everywhere.
Yep. Yeah, AstroPub's all over the place. One of the first people that I started watching the videos of regularly when I started to, I followed Star Citizen for a while, but I didn't really follow the YouTube scene. I know a lot of people who are like fans of a game will just never even touch certain platforms regarding that game, and I didn't touch YouTube for a while, but when I started to, yours were one of the first that I saw. So if you do like his stuff, check those out. I would also love to say, I gotta plug my own stuff here, but I did have Astro Pub on an episode earlier this year, episode 9. We talked a little while about how lore can build games better, and believe it or not, lore is going to help build Star Citizen better. Oh, it is. There's a lot of it, and I hope we get to see more. I would like to thank everybody for coming to this episode of the launch sequence. It's been a great one, another great one. We are on the slow approach to CitizenCon, and I would also like to announce that I will be doing something live for CitizenCon, actually on my primary YouTube channel, so make sure you're over there. AstroPub will probably end up being there for one or two of the panels. We'll be hanging out, talking, chatting, and just kind of going over what's going on in between those exciting moments. But also, of course, you can find all of my stuff. It's up on the top of the screen here, or for you who are listening to the audio podcast, just go down to the show notes and you can find all of my links. But please do check them out. I've got videos, and I'm even starting some blog posts on the website. Very slow, but they're coming. So please check them out. If you like this stuff, support me on Patreon. It is a great way to help me keep doing this and to keep growing this Space Tomato content. But I would like to again say thank you all for coming to episode 17. It's been a blast. And AstroPub, if you'd like to sign us off.
Thank you for watching the launch sequence. Remember to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time in the black.